Hi, everyone, and welcome to the P&G Alumni Coaching Webinar. I'm Ileana Rojas and your host today, and I'm so excited and honored to be joined by 3 of our 13 coaches that support this program to talk about work-life balance or harmony. We'll get into that. Now, before we start our conversation, let me tell you about the P&G Alumni Coaching Team. We're a trusted and accomplished group of globally experienced former P&G women leaders who provide certified coaching services to P&G alumni. And we do this as part of a bigger mission of the P&G Alumni Network, which is a nonprofit founded by former P&G employees to share ideas, talents, and resources like this with each other, our communities and philanthropy efforts. Now, today, I'm very excited to welcome some of my fellow coaches to join me on this very important topic for every woman and actually for anybody in any stage in their career, and that is how to achieve work-life harmony. So let me start by welcoming Bernice Ang. Bernice leverages her 25-year experience as an executive in Fortune 500 companies to help senior leaders create purpose-centered personal brand so they can lead with authenticity and integrate their demanding work and personal lives. Bernice, thank you so much for being with us today.
Great to be here.
Next, let me introduce Chris Nasavera. Chris has over 20 years of corporate experience in global and regional roles in supply chain, strategy, operations, and innovation. She's a certified executive coach, facilitator, and organizational consultant. She, with a special focus on change, she works with leaders and teams to grow through challenges, shift their mindsets, and live with greater clarity and purpose. Chris, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks, Ileana.
And then Heidi Piper. Heidi has decades of experience as a global executive innovation leader and a working mother, living internationally and more recently as an entrepreneur. She's an ICF certified coach and organizational consultant. And as an executive coach, she supports leaders to create high-performing, innovative, resilient teams and thriving work cultures that attract and retain talent. As a life coach, Heidi supports people to create and live their best life. Heidi, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
And I'm your host, Ileana Rojas. And as a coach, I'm passionate about helping underrepresented leaders and women of color to find their voice, to elevate their presence, and to reconnect with their purpose to create meaningful impact in the workplace and in the communities where they're located. And I'm just so excited and thrilled to be a part of this series today. So, let's get going and let's jump right into the topic at hand. So May in the US is Mental Health Awareness Month. And it is a month to raise awareness about the importance of mental health and how it is essential to our overall health and well-being. And this is critical to be able to perform the best that we can and be the best that we can in our work, in our lives, and everything that we do. Now, as part of this movement, achieving work-life harmony is taking a priority for professionals, for women, and also for organizations to ensure that they provide a culture where employees feel that they have the energy and the engagement to do their best work. Now, recent studies from Gallup and Deloitte have pointed out that well-being is becoming one of the most sought out benefits from employees when they're looking to accept a new job and from current employees within their current jobs to stay engaged and not go looking for something else. So this is becoming a really hot topic, and I'm so excited that I have all my experts here to talk about this today. So I would love to start the conversation with asking each of you, like in your experience, both, as professionals, as women, as coaches, as leaders, what is work-life harmony and how is it different than work-life balance? Because we've heard of both, phrases or both topics interchangeably, but I believe there is a difference, and I would love to hear from your point of view what it is. And I want to start with Bernice.
Sure. I'll start with the work-life balance because it's the old concept that we have to build a wall between our personal life and our professional life so that we confine our work just to the workplace and in the work hours, and we prevent it from infringing on our personal time. So this is so defensive, as you could see, right? It's almost like this thing is happening to us and we have to protect ourselves from it. And the whole notion of work life harmony is you're one person, right? You're integrated, your work and life happens all at once. And when you see it as working in flow and in harmony, you're not taking such a defensive stance and trying to protect things from being taken from you, but you're really looking at how do I accomplish my personal and my professional goals together.
Thank you, Bernice. Thank you for sharing. And you bring up a really good point that I want to come back to. But before Heidi, please, your point of view.
Yeah, I agree with what Bernice said. And work-life balance, you're looking at work and life as two separate and distinct parts of your whole life. And you look at how you allocate your time, your attention, and your energy and split it between the two. And then the balance part is about trying to make sure that one of them doesn't totally overtake the other one. But in work-life harmony, it's a more holistic way of looking at these two parts of your total life. In the end, work is part of your life. And whether you like it or not, you bring your whole self to work. And in the end, both and your work and your life, they need to support your well-being. And there's more synergy when you look at it like this.
Thank you, Heidi. How about you, Chris?
The image that I'll also start with work-life balance. The image that it always brought to mind for me was that of walking on a tightrope, right? That there's this wire you need to be on, you're holding the balance bar, but too much one way or the other isn't good. And it had this suggestion that there was this elusive sweet spot in the middle that we're all chasing after that quite frankly was unattainable. And it had the suggestion that you had to neglect one thing to choose another. And this really, the problem with this is it really does it, like the two have already said, it puts work and life as two separate things, whereas work-life harmony is much more organic, it's much more fluid, and it is really about an approach to life that allows for the interdependency of all those elements, instead of them being independent boxes that we're vying for our time or our energy. And instead it's about making choices about where to put your energy that you want to for your whole, let's say the whole view of your well-being or the whole view of your life. Thanks.
Yeah, so critically important, right? The power of words, because we might understand different things, but as we clarify the words and the meaning behind those words, between balance and harmony, a completely shift in our mindset and our approach in the fear or the whatever we might negative emotions that we might feel to accomplish those can move away from that. And with that, then I'd like to hear then what are the challenges and barriers that many of us are facing to achieve this work-life harmony, because it's something that we know that's very important, but it's so difficult to achieve. So would love to start with you, Chris. What are your thoughts?
Mm-hmm. There's two things I see as the key challenges, and they're both related to the context of the times we live in right now. The first one is it's so hard to stay focused. There are relentless, pulls on our time, our attention, our devices are always on. And so staying focused on what's important to us. The boundary between work and life is blurred, work and home is blurred. So I see a key challenge is how to stay focused on what we've set out as our goals for work and life harmony. And the second one is just simply the rate of change. As soon as you might make a plan for work-life harmony, something in your circumstances may change, which leads you to having to revise that plan. So I think it's just naturally the world we live in contextually it's difficult to stay focused, and there's always something changing around us are the biggest challenges that I've personally had with that too.
Thank you, Chris. Bernice.
Yeah, I think it's definitely focus. And I'll add another dimension to that, which is mindfulness, right? Sometimes we're so used to multitasking and doing things all at the same time, but we all know that when we try to juggle so many things, you don't do anything well. So to me, it's really about being fully present and not allowing things to drag you every which way. Whatever you're attending to, be 100% focused, as Chris said, and be really mindful of giving it your full attention as if that's the most important thing. Because trying to do multiple things and juggling everything will result in us not doing any one thing well.
Thank you, Bernice. Heidi, how about you? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I agree with what Chris and Bernice said, and I would add some internal elements that can affect how easy or hard it is to deal with work-life harmony, and those would be perfectionism and people-pleasing. So it's so easy to try to want to be perfect at everything we do in all areas of our life, and it's really very, very difficult, if possible at all, to do that. And then people pleasing also is pretty common. We want everybody around us to be happy, and everybody's pulling on us in all areas of our life. And so that makes it really hard too. So trying to get clear what you want to be perfect and what is okay, where just enough is okay, and being clear that it's really not possible to make everybody happy all the time.
I think you bring up a really important point, Heidi. Well, all of you bring really important points, but I want to touch on the perfectionism because I think that one is a constant, and I'm starting to see, especially women leaders, to talk about themselves as a recovering perfectionist.
Nice.
And I think that is a way to recognize, right, that we've been in that place of everything needs to be done in a certain way, and we need to be there 24/7 and do things, in a certain way, and it's not possible, especially like you say, Chris, in this ever-changing environment where it's important for us to stay focused, and Bernice, like you say, to be fully present. Then that perfectionism, it's not that it's not important, but there comes a point to, is 70%. Am I okay with just doing things at a 70%, which is something that I consistently tell my clients, like there's moments and you have to be okay with that 70%. Now, why is being intentional and purposeful about planning for work-life harmony important? Because it is an important thing that we need to do, but it keeps being pushed to the side. So what are your thoughts, Chris?
Thanks, Ileana. I think the reason why being intentional and purposeful for this is important, and I can share some of my own examples, is really linked to the challenges we just talked about. It's clear we live in a time of unprecedented uncertainty and change. There's so many demands on our schedule, and yet we have this yearning for more meaning, for more purpose, for more connection. And work-life harmony can support us by weaving together all the things that are most important to us. But we are faced with exactly the challenges that we all just talked about a minute before. So being intentional about how I want to do this and connecting it back to your why, your purpose, becomes ever more important to keep you on that track. And for me, intentional means I have to check in on this pretty regularly. So when I started to be more focused on creating a life of harmony, what I realized is I can be like a dog with a bone on a new idea. I get really excited and I start going in that direction. And I may continue with it without checking in on asking, is this still where I want to be headed? So part of intentionality for me, as an example, is I have to regularly ask myself, is this still the right plan? And is this still connected with my bigger purpose? So I think intentionality and purpose just are really the guides to support you when you're facing all those challenges.
And you mentioned regularly, and I think that's important because I know that I start like you, I love something and get just hooked on it, but then 2, 3 weeks or a month go by, and then suddenly there's something else that takes over. So the regularly becomes an important word, so that the intentionality does not fade off.
Can I add one last thing to that, Ileana?
Yes, absolutely.
Kind of linked back to Heidi's point about perfectionism and even pleasing, I have had a tendency perhaps to want to stay with something just because I started it, and to want to finish it, even if it's no longer in line with where I want to be. So giving permission to also let things go is equally important, part of that purposefulness for me.
Oh my God, giving ourselves permission. So easy to say, so hard to do.
So hard to do.
And our education
go
is
ahead,
a little
Bernice.
bit different, right? When we used to be told that good enough is not good enough, when in fact good enough should be good enough for most things.
Absolutely, absolutely. So how do we create this work-life harmony? And so now I'm intentional. I've realized that this is important. It's something that I need. If not, I'm going to burn out. And I'm feeling that I'm getting to that point. But we're still in a very fast-paced environment. There's still expectations that are required. Many of us still need to hold to the job, right, to make it happen, especially with all the economic burdens that are surrounding us in so many levels and ways. So how do we create the space and move from intention into action? Starting with you, Heidi.
So I think the first thing that's very helpful is to get super clear on your values, and then to make sure that your work aligns with them. And then to do work that you enjoy and that you're good at with people that you like. In the end, you want to leave work energized and happy. And I do believe this is possible because I've really experienced this across my life. And you want that to happen because you take home whatever you leave work with, and you infect your evenings and weekends with that. So you want that to be good. And then ideally your experience inside work and outside work each leave you with the energy to invest in the other. So it's like an infinity sign. Each activity is regenerative for the other.
Absolutely. So important. Bernice, how about you?
Yeah, I love starting with values, Heidi. So exactly like you said. And I have 3 things that I always like to practice. One is set very clear personal and professional goals, because until you have vividly described for yourself what's important for you to accomplish, it's hard to know whether you're there or not. And with work, you always have work goals. So that takes over a lot of things, right? And without personal goals, nature abhors a vacuum. So everything else is going to crowd into something that you didn't set. The second thing is know yourself. It's what is it that energizes you and what is it that drains you. So for example, for me, I love being outside, just sitting out on the outside, looking at nature, looking at the trees, and all that gives me energy. And what drains me is staring at the computer all day and preparing decks, especially. So I try to blend the two. If I have to create decks, I bring my computer outside, sit outside, so I can really intertwine the two and make sure I'm feeding myself while I'm getting drained doing something I don't love. Then the third thing is oscillation. I love this concept. Oscillation is just the idea of knowing how to go up and down with the cycles and the rhythm of your day. So there's research that found that the best athletes really know how to oscillate well, meaning they can go very fast with very strong maximum performance heartbeat, and then they can recover very quickly within the same moment to really center themselves before they go up again. Right. So the same thing about our daily lives, if we could oscillate within the day, within the month, within the year, right, with things that we charge very hard for and we recover with deep rest, even, short 5-minute mindfulness exercises between calls will help us recover well and get very, very present.
Great, great advice. Chris, how about you?
Yeah, I really love this idea of the infinity that Heidi that you gave. Some really great ideas. I agree with all of those. I'll add only a couple of other questions perhaps that you could ask yourself. One would be, where is it that I feel my energy and enthusiasm come up, and where do I feel drained? Just start to notice that on your day-to-day life if you're not doing that yet, and start to look where there might be overlap for those things where there's a common thread, and start to ask, how can I do more? Like Bernice mentioned, of those that energize me, and if possible, how can I dial back or make changes on those things that really, really deplete me? Another question is to look out to the future. Where would I like to be in the future? Doesn't have to be far out. It could be a short time into the future, but what are the things I can do today to move me closer to that? Or are there things I'm doing that are preventing me from getting there? And the last question, which is often a difficult question for women to ask, but it's an important one, is how can I better care for myself in this moment to be my best later for my work, my family, or my community? And it's not about being your best all the time, but it is about better caring for ourselves. What do I need right now? And so those might be some questions to ask that could give some insights about what work-life harmony could look like for a person.
All of this is great advice. And I'd like to add one more, tagging on to what you had said at the beginning, Heidi. And I think it's surrounding ourselves with people that support us, right? We don't have to have all the answers, and we don't have to do everything. Although sometimes there's this belief of, the superwoman effect, right? We need to prove ourselves and do everything ourselves. And that's why we take on not only the things that we need to do, but we take on everybody else's things that we need to do. And that doesn't help. But shifting our mindset to surrounding ourselves with a support system, with a group of people that we can lean on, that to help us through the process, that can encourage us, that can energize us, that can pick us up in those moments, like you're mentioning, Bernice, when we're down and we're just feeling off, because sometimes those pick-me-ups can be really, really hard, although we know that we need to. Sometimes it's just hard, and having somebody that we can call, that we can text, that we can throw some smoke signs and say, like, today I just need that pick me up, and having that support system, it becomes also critically important, and that can help us stay accountable, right? It's like I always say, it's like going to the gym. You need somebody there to be there and to keep you staying in those moments. These are all great pieces of advice. So as leaders, and many of the people that watch us in these webinars, they are leaders in their areas, in their organizations. How can leaders support their employees, support their teams, and the people that that are under their care in achieving this work-life harmony? And I would love to start with you, Bernice.
Yes, I'd say walk the talk, right? You role model the behavior you'd love to see uh, your team showing, because it's like parents, right? And when you say you should do this and not that, and yet you behave in that way, people see that. So when you're at the office at the crack of dawn, you send late night messages, it really puts pressure on people to do the same, even though you don't intend to. So it's really having a very clear mindset of what's the impact of my behavior on other people, and what is the unintended consequence if I'm not mindful of my behavior. Role modeling is so key.
Thank you. Haiti, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I would say an underpinning of that is to base assessment on results, not face time, and giving people the freedom to take care of the things that they need to outside of work, also during work hours sometimes. So make it okay to be away from work for a few hours if they need to attend a school function for their kids or be there for the repairman at home, and encourage them to take all their vacation. And as Bernice said, be the example of those things yourself, and make sure people know that you're doing it by talking about the fact you're doing that to the organization. And I would also say support a strong, inclusive workplace culture by creating a culture which allows people to be authentically who they are at work, and one where they know that you have their back, and one that is fun. So as I said before, everyone should leave work energized regularly. They bring that home. Things are better at home then, and then they come back to work energized the next day. So it's a positive spiral that's good for engagement, productivity, and talent attraction and retention.
Absolutely. Chris, any additional thoughts?
Such great ideas. Not a lot to add, but I guess the one thing to keep in mind is just to also be flexible and adaptive about this. Talking to your teams, the people under your care, they may not even have thought about this themselves. So give them an opportunity to think about this and to come back with discussions. And then as soon as it's discussed, it may change. So be willing to be agile with them as the business needs change, as their lives change, and just keep in touch with your teams on this topic. I think is another important way to keep it alive and have that over time really infuse a different type of culture in the workplace.
And I think that's very important in terms of being curious and open to feedback. I think as leaders, we don't ask enough questions about what can I do, right? We don't need to have the answers. We just need to ask the question, what can I do to help you achieve work-life harmony? How can I provide the space, the support, whatever it is that they need? Sometimes we think that what works for us is what works for everybody, and we want to enforce that, and that is not the case, right? Everybody has different values and have different things going on in their lives, so that one is also something to keep in mind. So I feel like we could talk about this topic. There's so many other areas in this topic that we could go into, but we're running out of time. Any final words or nuggets of wisdom that our audience, or calls to action that our audience can take away? Chris?
Well, just to remember that this is very individual. And there's no formula for this, right? There's no one size fits all for all people. And also there's not one size fits all for, let's say, the arc of your life and your career. So revisit this and discuss this with a friend, with a colleague, with a coach, with your mentor, and learn about it as you go, because it's something extremely individual.
Thank you. Bernice?
Just be kind and compassionate to yourself, right? Treat yourself with care, and make sure that you're attending to what you need, not attending to just everybody else's needs.
Thank you, Bernice. Heidi?
Yeah, I would just say go for joy. So do what you love and be with who lifts you up. And you should be focused on creating joy for yourself and those around you. If you make that your objective, you're going to live your best life.
Absolutely. And start today. It just takes one little thing, that one little step, to just be intentional and move from that intentionality to action. Thank you so much, Bernice, Chris, and Heidi, for joining me in this very insightful, powerful, and hopefully energizing conversation, that I hope has left our audience with great tips and advice and self-awareness that can help them reach that work-life harmony. feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions on this. I've been putting all the different LinkedIns of each of us at the beginning, so you can go back and reach out to us. And also any other relevant topics or challenges or questions that you might have, we're always here to serve. And sign up for your free consultation at coaching.pgalums.com. This program will continue through the remainder of the year. So a coach is somebody that can help you achieve this work-life harmony. So don't wait for more time, or don't wait until you burn out to be able to get there. There's always a way around it. So we're here to support. This is Ileana Rojas Saldaña, your host today for this P&G Alumni Coaching webinar. Thank you for listening. And I hope that you have a wonderful rest of the day wherever in the world you are. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Thank you.